Imagine standing at the edge of a shimmering, crystal-clear lake, surrounded by majestic mountains that seem to touch the heavens. This is Lhamo Lhatso, the goddess lake, a sacred body of water nestled deep within the spiritual heartland of Tibet. It's not just a geographical feature, it's a living embodiment of faith, mystery, and the timeless human yearning for connection with the divine. As you gaze into its tranquil waters, you can't help but wonder, what secrets does this lake hold? What truths might it reveal to those who approach it with an open heart and a quiet mind? The name Lhamo Lhatso itself carries a sense of reverence, translating roughly to divine lake or lake of visions. Its epithet speaks volumes about its mystical reputation, a place where seekers come to meditate and receive glimpses of the future. But why do people believe so fervently in its power? Perhaps it's because the lake represents something universal, the desire to transcend the limitations of our everyday lives and glimpse the infinite possibilities of existence. Isn't it extraordinary how a simple act of gazing into water can evoke such profound emotions? The lake seems to whisper, "Look deeper." Beyond the surface lies a world of meaning. For centuries, high-ranking Tibetan Buddhist lamas have journeyed to this sacred site, sitting silently by its shores, meditating on critical questions that affect their communities. These aren't trivial matters. They often involve identifying the reincarnations of important figures, including the Dalai Lama himself. Imagine the weight of such responsibility. And yet, these lamas trust that the reflections on the water will guide them, revealing hidden truths and offering clarity. How humbling it is to think that answers to monumental decisions could be found in the gentle ripples of a lake. Doesn't this remind us that wisdom often comes in unexpected forms? At the heart of this practice lies a rich tapestry of spiritual beliefs rooted in Tibetan Buddhism. Divination plays a central role in this tradition, whether through dreams, oracles, or natural phenomena like the patterns seen in the lake's surface. For the practitioners, these methods are not mere superstition. They are pathways to understanding the unseen forces that shape our lives. Isn't it fascinating how humans have always sought ways to make sense of the unknown? In a world increasingly driven by technology and logic, doesn't the lake offer a refreshing reminder that some mysteries remain beyond the reach of science? But Lhamo Lhatso is more than just a tool for prophecy. It is deeply intertwined with the cultural and religious identity of Tibet. Linked to Palden Lhamo, one of the 8 main protectors of Tibetan Buddhism, the lake is believed to be guarded by powerful deities who watch over those who visit with pure intentions. Doesn't this belief inspire a sense of awe? To stand by the lake is to feel the presence of something ancient and eternal, a force far greater than ourselves. It reminds us that we are part of a vast, interconnected web of life, where every action resonates across time and space. Water, as a symbol, has long been associated with purification, reflection, and revelation. At Lhamo Lhatso, its reflective quality takes on new dimensions, inviting us to look inward and confront the depths of our own consciousness. When you gaze into the lake, you begin to realize that the visions it offers are not just about the external world. They are also mirrors of your inner self. Could it be that the lake teaches us to trust not only in divine guidance, but also in our ability to navigate life's uncertainties? And then there's the profound connection between nature and spirituality that the lake embodies. In Tibetan Buddhism, natural sites like mountains, caves, and lakes are revered as embodiments of spiritual energy. Lhamo Lhatso is no exception. It stands as a testament to the harmony between humans and the environment. Doesn't this philosophy resonate deeply in today's world, where environmental crises loom large? If we treated the earth as sacred, as a living, breathing entity, how different would our relationship with it be? The lake seems to whisper, "Protect me, and I will protect you." Historically, Lhamo Lhatso has played a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of Tibetan Buddhism. High lamas and spiritual leaders have sought its guidance during pivotal moments in history, ensuring its continued relevance. Yet, in modern times, political challenges threaten the preservation of traditions tied to sacred sites like this. Despite these difficulties, The lake remains a potent symbol of resilience and devotion, inspiring pilgrims and scholars alike. Doesn't this resilience teach us that the spirit of a people and a place cannot be extinguished so long as there are those who believe? As you leave the lake behind, its stillness lingers in your mind, urging you to reflect on the lessons it imparts. Life, like water, is ever-changing, sometimes turbulent, sometimes calm, but always moving forward. What if we embrace this flow instead of resisting it? What if we trusted that the universe has a way of guiding us, even when the path ahead seems uncertain? In the end, Lhamo Lhatso is more than a lake. It is a mirror, a teacher, and a sanctuary. It invites us to explore the depths of our souls, to find wisdom in simplicity, and to honor the interconnectedness of all things. So, dear watcher, I leave you with this question. What vision awaits you at the edge of your own lake of visions? Will you dare to look beyond the ripples and discover the reflection of your highest self? Expanding on the mystical nature of Lhamo Lhatso. To truly grasp the essence of Lhamo Lhatso, one must delve into the layers of mysticism that surround it. The lake is not merely a physical entity. It exists in the liminal space between the tangible and intangible, the seen and unseen. Its waters are said to possess a kind of sentience, responding to the intentions of those who approach it. Is this mere folklore? Or is there a kernel of truth buried within these ancient beliefs? Consider the concept of synchronicity, the idea that events are meaningfully related, even if they lack a causal connection. Could it be that the visions experienced by meditators at Lhamo Lhatso are manifestations of this principle? When a seeker gazes into the lake with focused intent, perhaps the universe aligns to present symbols and patterns that resonate with their subconscious mind. This interpretation bridges the gap between spirituality and psychology, suggesting that the lake acts as a catalyst for introspection rather than a literal oracle. Moreover, the lake's association with protective deities adds another layer of complexity. Palden Lhamo, the fierce goddess linked to Lhamo Lhatso, is both a guardian and a challenger. She demands purity of heart and purpose from those who seek her blessings. Isn't it intriguing how many spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of intention, whether praying to a deity, performing a ritual, or simply setting a goal? Our motivations shape the outcomes we experience. The lake, therefore, becomes a test of sincerity, a place where only the genuine can hope to find enlightenment. Yet, what happens when someone approaches the lake with doubt or skepticism? Does it withhold its secrets? Or does it challenge them to confront their disbelief? Perhaps the lake's power lies not in its ability to predict the future, but in its capacity to transform the observer. After all, isn't transformation the ultimate form of prophecy? By changing how we see ourselves and the world, we alter the trajectory of our lives. The role of meditation and reflection meditation is at the core of the practices conducted at Lhamo Lhatso. High Lamas spend hours, days, or even weeks in silent contemplation, focusing their minds on specific questions or dilemmas. This process requires immense discipline and patience, qualities that modern society often undervalues. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, the act of sitting quietly by a lake may seem archaic or impractical. But what if slowing down is precisely what we need to reconnect with our true selves? The reflections seen in the water are not random. They are interpreted as symbolic messages from the divine. A ripple might represent change, a shadow could signify uncertainty, and a clear patch of water might indicate clarity. These interpretations require not only spiritual insight, but also creativity and intuition. Isn't it remarkable how much of life operates on similar principles? We encounter signs and symbols every day, yet few of us take the time to decode them. What lessons can we draw from this practice? First, the importance of mindfulness cannot be overstated. By being fully present in the moment, we open ourselves to insights that might otherwise elude us. Second, the value of patience becomes evident. Just as the lamas wait for the right conditions to interpret the lake's reflections, we too must learn to bide our time and trust that answers will come when the time is right. Finally, The practice underscores the interconnectedness of all things. The lake, the meditator, and the universe are not separate entities. They are threads in the same cosmic fabric. Nature as a spiritual teacher. One of the most profound aspects of Lhamo Lhatso is its integration of nature into spiritual practice. Unlike many religious traditions that focus primarily on texts or rituals, Tibetan Buddhism embraces the natural world as a source of wisdom. Mountains are seen as abodes of deities, rivers as conduits of blessings, and lakes like Lhamo Lhatso as mirrors of the soul. This perspective offers a refreshing antidote to the anthropocentric worldview that dominates contemporary culture. Think about it. When was the last time you paused to appreciate the beauty of a tree, the sound of wind rustling through leaves, or the rhythm of waves crashing against the shore? Nature has a way of grounding us, reminding us of our smallness in the grand scheme of things. Yet, paradoxically, it also makes us feel infinite, as though we are part of something far greater than ourselves. Isn't this duality the essence of spirituality? At Lhamo Lhatso, this connection is palpable. The lake's pristine waters reflect not only the sky above, but also the aspirations and fears of those who gaze into them. It serves as a reminder that nature is not passive. It actively participates in our quest for meaning. Every element, the breeze, the sunlight, the stones beneath your feet, contributes to the overall experience. In this way, the lake becomes a co-creator of the visions it inspires. This symbiotic relationship between humans and nature raises important questions about our role as stewards of the earth. If sacred sites like Lhamo Lhatso are imbued with spiritual significance, shouldn't we treat the entire planet with the same reverence? Climate change, deforestation, and pollution threaten not only ecosystems, but also the cultural heritage of countless communities. By protecting places like Lhamo Lhatso, we preserve not just a lake, but a way of life, a philosophy that honors the sacredness of existence. Historical accounts. Stories of famous lamas and their experiences at Lhamo Lhatso. The history of Lhamo Lhatso is rich with tales of revered lamas, spiritual leaders, and seekers who have journeyed to its shores in search of divine guidance. These accounts are not merely historical anecdotes. They serve as testaments to the lake's enduring mystique and its role as a conduit for prophecy and enlightenment. Each story adds another layer of depth to the lake's legacy, revealing how it has shaped the course of Tibetan Buddhism and inspired generations of practitioners. The discovery of the 14th Dalai Lama. One of the most famous stories associated with Lhamo Lhatso involves the identification of the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso. Following the death of the 13th Dalai Lama in 1933, a search party was dispatched to locate his reincarnation, a process steeped in ritual and divination. Among the methods employed was meditation at Lhamo Lhatso, where high lamas sought visions that would guide them to the child destined to carry forward the lineage of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion. Led by Riting Rinpoche, the regent at the time, the lamas embarked on a pilgrimage to the sacred lake. After days of intense meditation, Riting Rinpoche reported seeing vivid images in the water, symbols, landscapes, and even numbers that pointed toward the location of the new Dalai Lama. One vision depicted a house with turquoise-tiled roofs near a monastery, while another revealed three syllables: A, Ka, and Ma. These clues eventually led the search party to Takster village in Amdo, modern-day Qinghai province, where they discovered a young boy named Lhamo Dondup. Through further tests and confirmations, he was identified as the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama and later enthroned as Tenzin Gyatso. This account underscores the pivotal role Lhamo Lhatso played in ensuring the continuity of one of Tibet's most revered institutions. It also raises profound questions about fate and destiny. Was the boy chosen because of the visions, or were the visions simply reflections of what was already written in the fabric of existence? The interplay between free will and predestination is a recurring theme in these stories, inviting us to ponder the nature of choice and inevitability. Palden Lamo's blessing, a protector's guidance. Another legendary tale revolves around Palden Lhamo, the fierce female deity who is said to guard Lhamo Lhatso. According to tradition, she appears to those who approach the lake with pure intentions, offering protection and guidance. One such story recounts the experience of a renowned Lama who ventured to the lake during a period of great uncertainty. This Lama, whose name has been lost to time, faced a dilemma that threatened the stability of his monastery. Unsure of how to proceed, he traveled to Lhamo Lhatso seeking answers. As he meditated by the shore, he felt an overwhelming presence envelop him. A sensation both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Suddenly, the waters began to shimmer unnaturally, and a vision emerged. Palden Lhamo herself, riding her mule across a sea of blood, holding a banner of victory in one hand and a sword in the other. Her eyes burned with intensity as she spoke directly to the Lama's mind, imparting cryptic yet unmistakable instructions. Though the details of her message remain undisclosed, the Lama returned to his community with renewed clarity and resolve. His actions, guided by the vision, resolved the crisis and restored harmony to the monastery. This story illustrates the dual nature of Palden Lhamo, as both a protector and a challenger. She does not offer easy solutions but demands courage and faith from those who seek her aid. In doing so, she transforms fear into strength and doubt into conviction. The Vision of Longchenpa. A poet-saint's revelation. Longchenpa, one of the greatest scholars and mystics in Tibetan Buddhist history, is said to have visited Lhamo Lhatso during his lifetime. Known for his poetic writings and profound teachings, Longchenpa sought the lake's wisdom to deepen his understanding of Dzogchen, the great perfection school of Tibetan Buddhism. According to oral traditions, Longchenpa spent several weeks in solitary retreat by the lake, fasting and meditating without interruption. On the final day of his retreat, he experienced a vision unlike any other. The surface of the lake transformed into a vast expanse of light, within which countless deities and celestial beings appeared. They performed intricate dances and chanted mantras, their voices resonating like thunder. At the center of this luminous display stood Samantabhadra, the primordial Buddha, who bestowed upon Longchenpa a direct transmission of ultimate truth. Inspired by this revelation, Longchenpa composed some of his most celebrated works, including the Seven Treasuries, which continue to influence Tibetan Buddhist philosophy to this day. His experience at Lhamo Lhatso exemplifies the transformative power of the lake, not just as a source of practical guidance, but as a gateway to higher states of consciousness. For Longchenpa, the lake was not merely a mirror reflecting the future. It was a portal connecting the mundane and the transcendent. Milarepa's encounter, humility and surrender. No discussion of Tibetan Buddhist history would be complete without mentioning Milarepa, the beloved yogi and poet whose life story is a cornerstone of the tradition. While there is no definitive record of Milarepa visiting Lhamo Lhatso, apocryphal accounts suggest that he once sought the lake's counsel during a moment of spiritual crisis. According to these stories, Milarepa arrived at the lake burdened by doubts about his progress on the path to enlightenment. Despite his rigorous practice and unwavering devotion, he felt plagued by lingering attachments and unresolved karma. Determined to overcome these obstacles, he sat by the lake and prayed fervently for insight. After hours of meditation, Milarepa noticed subtle changes in the water's surface. At first, the ripples formed patterns resembling chains, symbolizing the karmic bonds that still bound him. Then, gradually, the chains dissolved into streams of light, signifying liberation. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Milarepa composed a spontaneous song of realization, expressing his newfound understanding of impermanence and emptiness. This narrative highlights the importance of humility and surrender in spiritual practice. Milarepa did not approach the lake expecting immediate answers. Instead, he opened himself fully to whatever wisdom it might offer. His willingness to confront his flaws and embrace uncertainty ultimately led to breakthroughs that deepened his connection to the divine. Modern-day pilgrims. Continuity. Amidst change, while many of the historical accounts surrounding Lhamo Lhatso date back centuries, the lake continues to attract pilgrims and seekers in the modern era. One particularly poignant story involves a contemporary Lama who visited the site during a time of political turmoil in Tibet. Facing immense pressure from external forces seeking to suppress Tibetan culture and religion, this Lama turned to Lhamo Lhatso for solace and direction. During his meditation, he reportedly saw images of resilience and renewal, fields of barley sprouting after a harsh winter, prayer flags fluttering defiantly in the wind, and monks chanting sutras despite adversity. These visions reinforced his belief in the indomitable spirit of the Tibetan people and inspired him to redouble his efforts to preserve their heritage. His experience serves as a reminder that Lhamo Lhatso is not frozen in time. It remains a living, breathing entity that responds to the needs of each generation. Whether guiding ancient lamas or modern-day activists, the lake adapts its messages to address the challenges of the present moment. In doing so, it becomes more than a relic of the past. It becomes a beacon of hope for the future. Lessons from the lake. What history teaches us. These stories collectively paint a portrait of Lhamo Lhatso as a dynamic and multifaceted entity. It is a place where the boundaries between myth and reality blur, where the past converges with the present, and where individual journeys intersect with collective destinies. Each account reveals something unique about the human condition: the longing for certainty, the struggle for meaning, and the pursuit of transcendence. But perhaps the most important lesson lies in the universality of these experiences. Regardless of era or circumstance, the seekers who visit Lhamo Lhatso share a common goal: to align themselves with a greater purpose. Whether identifying a Dalai Lama, resolving a personal dilemma, or finding inspiration for artistic creation, they all embody the timeless quest for truth and transformation. In this sense, Lhamo Lhatso transcends its physical form. It becomes a metaphor for the inner journey we all must undertake. A journey that requires patience, courage, and faith. Just as the lake reflects the sky above, it also mirrors the depths of our own souls, inviting us to look beyond appearances and discover the infinite possibilities within. So, dear watcher, as you reflect on these historical accounts, consider this. What vision would you seek if you stood by the shores of Lhamo Lhatso? Would you ask for answers to specific questions, or would you open yourself to whatever wisdom the universe might offer? Whatever your response, remember that the lake's true power lies not in predicting the future, but in illuminating the path to self-discovery. Philosophical reflections, deeper dives into concepts like impermanence, karma, and compassion. At its core, the mystique of Lhamo Lhatso is not merely about prophecy or divination. It is a profound invitation to engage with some of the most fundamental philosophical concepts in Tibetan Buddhism. These ideas, impermanence, karma, and compassion, are woven into the fabric of the lake's spiritual significance, offering seekers a lens through which to view their lives and the world around them. Let us delve deeper into these timeless teachings, exploring how they resonate with the human experience and how they manifest in the context of Lhamo Lhatso. Impermanence. The flowing waters of existence. One cannot stand by the shores of Lhamo Lhatso without being reminded of the impermanent nature of all things. The ripples on the water's surface are never static. They shift, dissolve, and reappear with every passing breeze. This constant motion serves as a powerful metaphor for life itself, a ceaseless flow of moments that arise and pass away, leaving no trace behind. In Tibetan Buddhism, impermanence, anicca in Pali, is a cornerstone of understanding reality. Everything we perceive, the mountains surrounding the lake, the clouds drifting overhead, even our own thoughts and emotions, is transient. Nothing remains fixed or unchanging. Yet, paradoxically, it is this very impermanence that gives life its beauty and urgency. If everything were permanent, would we cherish it as deeply? Would we feel the same awe when gazing at the fleeting colors of a sunset, or hearing the gentle lapping of waves against the shore? The lake teaches us to embrace impermanence rather than resist it. When meditating by its waters, practitioners often report feeling a sense of liberation, an acceptance of the ebb and flow of existence. Instead of clinging to outcomes or fearing loss, they learn to trust in the natural rhythm of life. This lesson extends far beyond the shores of Lhamo Lhatso. In our daily lives, we too face countless changes, relationships that evolve, careers that shift, dreams that transform. By internalizing the truth of impermanence, we can navigate these transitions with grace and equanimity. Consider the reflections seen in the lake. They are ephemeral, disappearing as quickly as they appear. Yet, within those fleeting images lies immense potential for guidance, insight, and transformation. Similarly, the moments of our lives, though transient, hold infinite possibilities if we approach them with mindfulness and presence. As the great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Thanks to impermanence, everything is possible." Karma, the ripple effect of actions. Another profound concept illuminated by Lhamo Lhatso is karma, the law of cause and effect. Just as a single pebble tossed into the lake creates ripples that spread outward, so too do our actions reverberate throughout the universe, shaping our future experiences. Karma is not punishment or reward, but a natural principle. Every action, thought, and intention sets into motion a chain of consequences that eventually return to us. When seekers meditate by the lake, they often reflect on their karmic imprints, the accumulated results of past deeds. The visions they receive may serve as reminders of unresolved karmas or opportunities for growth. For example, a shadowy reflection might symbolize lingering attachments or negative patterns, while a clear patch of water could represent purification and liberation. These interpretations encourage practitioners to take responsibility for their actions and strive toward virtuous conduct. But karma is not limited to individuals. It operates on a collective level as well. The state of the world, the harmony or discord we witness, is a reflection of humanity's cumulative karma. In this light, Lhamo Lhatso becomes more than a personal oracle. It is a microcosm of the interconnected web of existence. The lake's pristine waters remind us of the importance of protecting our environment, fostering compassion, and cultivating peace, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. This perspective challenges us to consider the broader impact of our choices. Every decision we make, no matter how small, contributes to the tapestry of life. Will we act with kindness and integrity, creating positive ripples? Or will we succumb to greed and ignorance, perpetuating cycles of suffering? The lake invites us to contemplate these questions and align our actions with our highest aspirations. Compassion, the heart of enlightenment. Perhaps the most transformative concept embodied by Lhamo Lhatso is compassion. Karuna. In Tibetan Buddhism, compassion is not merely an emotion. It is the essence of enlightenment itself. It arises from the recognition that all beings share the same desire for happiness and freedom from suffering. When practitioners sit by the lake, they are encouraged to cultivate this boundless love, not only for themselves, but for all sentient beings. The connection between compassion and prophecy is particularly striking. Many of the visions received at Lhamo Lhatso involve guidance related to the welfare of others. For instance, the identification of a new Dalai Lama is not about personal gain, but about ensuring the continuity of wisdom and compassion for the benefit of countless beings. Similarly, the protective deity Palden Lhamo embodies fierce compassion, wielding her sword not out of anger, but to cut through ignorance and delusion. What does this teach us about the role of compassion in our own lives? Too often, we prioritize individual success over communal well-being, mistaking self-interest for fulfillment. Yet, true happiness stems from contributing to something greater than ourselves. Acts of kindness, whether grand or humble, create a ripple effect that touches countless lives. Just as the lake nourishes the surrounding ecosystem, so too does compassion sustain the fabric of society. Imagine standing by Lhamo Lhatso and allowing its stillness to fill your heart with empathy. As you gaze into its depths, you begin to see not just your own reflection, but the faces of all beings who have ever sought solace there. You realize that your struggles and joys are not unique. They are part of a shared human experience. This realization dissolves the illusion of separation, opening the door to genuine connection and understanding. Interconnectedness, a tapestry of existence. The concepts of impermanence, karma, and compassion converge in the larger framework of interconnectedness. At Lhamo Lhatso, this interconnectedness is palpable. The lake does not exist in isolation. It is sustained by the snowmelt from distant peaks, the rains that fall from the sky, and the prayers of countless pilgrims who visit its shores. Likewise, each of us is part of an intricate web of relationships, with other people, with nature, and with the cosmos itself. This awareness has profound implications for how we live our lives. If we recognize that harming another being ultimately harms ourselves, we are less likely to engage in destructive behaviors. If we understand that our happiness depends on the well-being of others, we are motivated to act with generosity and care. And if we embrace the fact that everything is interdependent, we develop a deep reverence for the sanctity of life. The lake's reflective surface mirrors this interconnectedness. When disturbed, the water loses its clarity, obscuring the images beneath. Similarly, when we allow greed, hatred, or delusion to cloud our minds, we lose sight of our true nature and the unity of all things. But when we cultivate mindfulness and compassion, the waters of our consciousness become still and transparent, revealing the luminous truth within. The paradox of control, trusting the flow, a recurring theme in the philosophical teachings associated with Lhamo Lhatso, is the paradox of control. Human beings have an innate desire to predict and manipulate the future. Yet the lake reminds us that such efforts are often futile. Its visions are not guarantees, but possibilities, invitations to trust in the unfolding of life. This surrender to uncertainty is perhaps the greatest challenge of all. We cling to plans and expectations, believing that control will bring security. But what if letting go is the key to finding peace? The lake's ever-changing reflections embody this lesson. They appear spontaneously, defying logic or prediction, yet they carry profound meaning for those who are open to receiving it. By embracing the unknown, we tap into a deeper source of wisdom, one that transcends intellectual analysis. This wisdom is rooted in faith, not blind belief, but a confident trust in the goodness of the universe. When we release our attachment to specific outcomes, we allow life to guide us in ways we could never anticipate. Like the lamas who meditate by the lake, we learn to listen to the whispers of the divine, trusting that the answers we seek will emerge in due time. Applying these teachings to modern life. While the philosophical insights offered by Lhamo Lhatso originate in ancient traditions, they hold immense relevance for contemporary life. In a world characterized by rapid change and mounting challenges, the principles of impermanence, karma, and compassion provide a stabilizing anchor. They remind us that despite external chaos, we possess the power to shape our inner landscape. For instance, consider the modern epidemic of anxiety and stress. Much of this suffering arises from our resistance to impermanence. We fear loss, cling to possessions, and dread the passage of time. But what if we reframed these fears as opportunities for growth? By accepting the inevitability of change, we free ourselves from the burden of trying to hold on to the ungraspable. Similarly, the concept of karma offers a moral compass in an increasingly fragmented society. In a culture driven by instant gratification, it is easy to overlook the long-term consequences of our actions. By adopting a karmic perspective, we become more mindful of the legacy we leave behind, not just for ourselves, but for the planet and future generations. Finally, compassion provides a pathway to healing the divisions that plague our world. Whether addressing social injustice, environmental degradation, or interpersonal conflict, acts of kindness and empathy have the power to bridge gaps and foster understanding. The lake's message is clear. The path to enlightenment is paved with love. Lhamo Lhatso is more than a sacred site. It is a mirror reflecting the deepest truths of existence. Through its shimmering waters, we encounter impermanence, karma, and compassion. not as abstract ideas but as lived realities. These teachings challenge us to confront our fears, examine our motivations, and expand the boundaries of our hearts. As you ponder these philosophical reflections, ask yourself, how can I integrate these lessons into my own life? How can I honor the impermanence of each moment, take responsibility for my actions, and extend compassion to all beings? The answers may not come immediately, but the journey of exploration is itself a form of enlightenment. So, dear watcher, let the spirit of Lhamo Lhatso guide you, not just to the shores of a mystical lake, but to the vast ocean of wisdom within. For in the end, the true prophecy lies not in predicting the future, but in transforming the present. Personal narratives, hypothetical accounts of individuals, visiting the lake and undergoing transformative experiences. The stories of those who visit Lhamo Lhatso are as varied as the ripples on its surface. Each individual brings their own hopes, fears, and questions to the lake, and in return, they leave transformed, sometimes subtly, sometimes profoundly. These hypothetical accounts, inspired by the rich spiritual traditions surrounding the sacred lake, offer a glimpse into how the experience of encountering Lhamo Lhatso might shape one's life. Through these narratives, we explore the universal themes of longing, revelation, and renewal that resonate across cultures and generations. Tenzin, a seeker. Confronting his doubts, Tenzin was a young monk from a remote monastery nestled high in the Himalayas. Though he had dedicated his life to the study of Buddhist philosophy, doubt gnawed at him like an insistent shadow. He questioned whether he truly belonged on this path, or if he was merely following tradition out of obligation. The weight of uncertainty grew heavier with each passing day until he decided to seek answers at Lhamo Lhatso. After days of arduous travel through rugged terrain, Tenzin arrived at the lake just as dawn broke over the mountains. The air was crisp, and the water shimmered with hues of gold and silver under the rising sun. As he knelt by the shore, his mind raced with conflicting thoughts. Would the lake reveal anything meaningful, or would it mock his doubts with silence? For hours, Tenzin sat motionless, focusing on his breath and letting go of expectations. Slowly, the restlessness within him began to subside. Then, as if responding to his surrender, the surface of the lake rippled gently, forming patterns that seemed almost deliberate. In the shifting reflections, Tenzin saw images of himself, not as he currently was, but as he could become. There was a version of him standing confidently before a crowd, teaching compassion and wisdom. Another showed him tending to the sick and elderly, radiating kindness. But then came a vision that startled him, an image of himself abandoning his robes and wandering aimlessly, lost in despair. It was a stark reminder of what awaited him if he allowed doubt to consume him. Tears streamed down Tenzin's face as he realized the choice before him was not between staying or leaving, but between faith and fear. When he finally rose to leave, the lake had given him no definitive answer, but it had illuminated the stakes. Over the months that followed, Tenzin embraced his practice with renewed vigor, finding solace in the knowledge that his journey was his alone to walk. The lake had not told him what to do. It had shown him the courage required to decide for himself. Maya, a modern pilgrim. Seeking forgiveness, Maya was not Tibetan, nor was she Buddhist. She was a journalist from New York City, drawn to Lhamo Lhatso after reading about its mystical reputation in a book. Her decision to visit stemmed from a deep-seated need for closure, a need born of guilt and regret. Years earlier, she had written a controversial article exposing corruption within a humanitarian organization. While her intentions were noble, the fallout had been devastating. Lives were ruined, trust was shattered, and Maya herself became estranged from colleagues and friends. Haunted by the consequences of her actions, Maya embarked on a pilgrimage to Tibet, hoping that the sacred lake might offer some form of absolution. When she first laid eyes on Lhamo Lhatso, its stillness took her breath away. For someone accustomed to the relentless pace of urban life, the tranquility felt almost otherworldly. As she meditated by the shore, memories flooded back, faces of people she had hurt, voices accusing her of betrayal. At one point, she broke down sobbing, overwhelmed by the weight of her remorse. Just then, the wind picked up, sending ripples across the water. In the shifting patterns, Maya thought she saw something extraordinary. Hands reaching out toward her, not in anger, but in forgiveness. It was as though the universe itself was extending an olive branch, inviting her to let go of the past. Over the next few days, Maya spent hours journaling and reflecting. She realized that while she couldn't undo the harm she had caused, she could dedicate herself to making amends. Upon returning home, she reached out to those she had wronged, offering sincere apologies and volunteering her time to support ethical journalism initiatives. Though reconciliation wasn't immediate or always possible, the act of trying brought her peace. Looking back, Maya often wondered whether the vision at the lake was real or imagined. But perhaps that didn't matter. What mattered was the shift it sparked within her. A movement from self-condemnation to self-compassion, from stagnation to action. Dorje, a father, searching for guidance. Dorje was a farmer living in a small village near Lhasa. Life had been kind to him. He had a loving wife, 2 healthy children, and enough land to sustain his family. Yet, recent events had left him feeling adrift. His eldest son, Jigme, had expressed a desire to join a monastery instead of continuing the family trade. While Dorje respected the monastic tradition, he struggled to reconcile his pride in Jigme's aspirations with his fear of losing his son. Unable to resolve the conflict within himself, Dorje turned to Lhamo Lhatso for guidance. He arrived at the lake during the early hours of the morning, carrying a simple offering of barley flour and incense. As he sprinkled the offering onto the water, he prayed silently, asking for clarity. The meditation session that followed was unlike anything Dorje had experienced before. Instead of wrestling with his thoughts, he found himself slipping into a state of profound calm. Gradually, the lake's surface began to reflect scenes from his life. Memories of working alongside his father in the fields, laughter shared with his wife, and moments of joy with his children. Among these images, he saw Jigme dressed in maroon robes, smiling serenely as he chanted prayers. What struck Dorje most was not the vision itself, but the emotions it evoked. He felt neither sadness nor resentment, but a deep sense of gratitude for having raised a child capable of pursuing such a noble path. By the time he left the lake, Dorje knew exactly what he needed to do. That evening, he gathered his family around the hearth and spoke openly about his feelings. "Jigme," he said, his voice steady, "if becoming a monk is your calling, then I will support you fully. Your happiness means more to me than anything else." The room fell silent, and then Jigme embraced his father, tears streaming down both their faces. In the years that followed, Dorje watched with pride as Jigme thrived in his new role. Though their lives took different paths, the bond between them remained unbroken, a testament to the transformative power of acceptance. Ani Chodron, a nun. Reclaiming her voice. Ani Chodron had spent decades living in solitude, dedicating her life to prayer and contemplation. Yet, despite her devotion, she harbored a secret longing to share her insights with others. Writing had always been her passion, but fear of judgment had kept her from pursuing it. "Who am I to teach?" she often asked herself. "I'm just a humble nun." One winter, driven by an inexplicable urge, Ani Chodron made the journey to Lhamo Lhatso. The cold bit at her skin as she approached the frozen lake, its surface glistening like polished glass. Despite the harsh conditions, she felt a strange warmth emanating from within. A sign, she believed, that she was meant to be there. For 3 days, Ani Chodron meditated without interruption, braving the biting winds and icy ground. On the final morning, as the sun began to rise, the ice cracked slightly, revealing a sliver of liquid water beneath. Peering into the opening, she saw her own reflection, but it was different somehow. Her eyes sparkled with determination, and her lips curved into a faint smile. It was as though the lake was showing her a version of herself she had forgotten existed, confident, creative, and unafraid to speak her truth. Inspired by this vision, Ani Chodron returned to her monastery and began writing. At first, her compositions were modest, short essays and poems shared only with fellow nuns. But gradually, her work gained recognition, eventually reaching audiences far beyond the confines of her community. Watchers praised her ability to distill complex teachings into accessible language, touching hearts and minds alike. Reflecting on her journey, Ani Chodron credited Lhamo Lhatso with awakening her inner voice. "The lake didn't give me permission to write," she later said. "It reminded me that I already had it all along." Norbu, a skeptic. Finding faith. Norbu was a scientist by profession and a skeptic by nature. Raised in a secular household, he had little patience for religious rituals or supernatural claims. However, when his mother fell ill and doctors offered no hope for recovery, Norbu found himself desperate enough to try anything, even visiting a so-called visionary lake. His arrival at Lhamo Lhatso was marked by skepticism. He scoffed at the pilgrims bowing reverently before the water, dismissing their practices as superstition. Still, he decided to humor the tradition, sitting by the shore and pretending to meditate. After all, the scenery was breathtaking, and he figured it wouldn't hurt to enjoy the view. To his surprise, the longer he sat, the quieter his mind became. Without intending to, Norbu slipped into a meditative state. And then, suddenly, the lake seemed to come alive. The ripples formed shapes that defied logic, symbols, faces, even brief flashes of color. One image stood out above the rest. A lotus flower blooming in slow motion, its petals unfurling with exquisite grace. Though initially dismissive, Norbu couldn't shake the vividness of the vision. That night, as he lay awake in his tent, he recalled a phrase his mother used to say, "Faith isn't about believing in miracles. It's about seeing the miracle in everything." Could it be that the lake wasn't magical, but simply a mirror reflecting the wonder inherent in existence? Over the weeks that followed, Norbu visited the lake daily, allowing himself to soften his rigid worldview. While he never fully abandoned his scientific perspective, he developed a newfound appreciation for the mysteries of life. When his mother passed away peacefully a few months later, Norbu found comfort in the belief that her spirit lived on. In the wind rustling through the trees, in the laughter of children, and yes, even in the shimmering waters of Lhamo Lhatso. These personal narratives highlight the diverse ways in which individuals interact with Lhamo Lhatso. Some arrive seeking answers, others forgiveness, and still others inspiration. Yet, regardless of their backgrounds or motivations, they all leave changed in some way. The lake does not impose its will upon them. Rather, it reflects their deepest truths, inviting them to confront their fears, embrace their potential, and rediscover their connection to something greater than themselves. In this sense, Lhamo Lhatso transcends its physical form. It becomes a metaphor for the human journey, a journey marked by questioning, searching, and ultimately, transformation. Whether you are a monk, a journalist, a farmer, a nun, or a scientist, the lessons of the lake remain the same. Trust in the process, honor your authenticity, and remember that the answers you seek may already reside within you, waiting to be uncovered. So, dear watcher, imagine yourself standing by the shores of Lhamo Lhatso. What story would unfold for you? What ripple would you cast into the vast ocean of existence? Whatever your response, know that the lake, and the universe it represents, is ready to listen. Cultural comparisons. Parallels between Lhamo Lhatso and other sacred sites. Worldwide sacred sites like Lhamo Lhatso are not unique to Tibet. They exist across cultures, religions, and geographies, serving as bridges between the human and the divine. Symboli. These places often share common themes, mystical powers, symbolic meanings, and roles in prophecy or spiritual transformation. By exploring parallels between Lhamo Lhatso and other sacred sites around the world, we can uncover universal patterns in how humans interact with the sacred and derive meaning from natural landscapes. Delphi, Greece. The Oracle of Apollo, one of the most famous sacred sites in Western history, is Delphi, home to the Oracle of Apollo in ancient Greece. Like Lhamo Lhatso, Delphi was believed to be a place where mortals could communicate with the gods and receive guidance about the future. Pilgrims traveled great distances to consult the Pythia, the priestess who served as the intermediary between humans and Apollo. The similarities between Delphi and Lhamo Lhatso are striking. Both sites were considered portals to higher realms, offering insights into destiny and decision-making. At Delphi, seekers posed questions to the Pythia, whose cryptic responses were interpreted by priests. Similarly, at Lhamo Lhatso, meditators interpret the reflections on the water's surface as symbolic messages from the divine. However, there are notable differences as well. While Delphi relied on a human oracle to convey divine wisdom, Lhamo Lhatso emphasizes direct personal experience through meditation and observation. This distinction reflects broader cultural values. Greek spirituality often involved intermediaries, whereas Tibetan Buddhism encourages individual spiritual practice and self-discovery. Despite these differences, both sites highlight humanity's enduring quest for clarity in uncertain times. Whether seeking answers from a priestess or gazing into reflective waters, people throughout history have turned to sacred spaces to navigate life's complexities. Lake Titicaca, Peru, Bolivia. The birthplace of creation. In Andean cosmology, Lake Titicaca holds immense spiritual significance as the birthplace of the sun, moon, and first Incas. According to legend, the creator god Viracocha emerged from the lake to bring order to the universe, shaping the landscape and populating it with beings crafted from stone. Today, indigenous communities continue to revere the lake as a source of life and inspiration. Like Lhamo Lhatso, Lake Titicaca is deeply intertwined with mythology and prophecy. Its waters are seen as a threshold between worlds, a place where the mundane meets the mystical. Rituals performed at the lake often involve offerings to Pachamama, Mother Earth, and other deities, reflecting a belief in reciprocity between humans and nature. Both lakes also serve as mirrors, not only physically, but metaphorically. Just as practitioners at Lhamo Lhatso interpret reflections to gain insight, Andean shamans use the lake's surface to divine messages from the spirit realm. In both cases, the act of looking into water becomes an exercise in introspection, revealing truths that lie beneath the surface of everyday reality. What sets Lake Titicaca apart is its role in creation myths. Unlike Lhamo Lhatso, which focuses more on divination and prophecy, Titicaca represents the origin point of existence itself. Yet, both bodies of water underscore the sanctity of natural elements and their capacity to inspire awe and reverence. Ganges River, India. A living goddess. For millions of Hindus, the Ganges River is not just a geographical feature, but a living goddess known as Ganga. Believed to flow directly from heaven, the river is revered for its purifying properties and its ability to wash away sins. Pilgrims flock to its banks to bathe, perform rituals, and scatter the ashes of loved ones, ensuring liberation, moksha, from the cycle of rebirth. While Lhamo Lhatso is primarily associated with visions and prophecy, the Ganges shares its status as a sacred entity imbued with transformative power. Both sites embody the idea that nature can facilitate spiritual growth and renewal. For instance, bathing in the Ganges is akin to meditating by Lhamo Lhatso. Both practices aim to cleanse the soul and align the practitioner with higher truths. Another parallel lies in the protective energies attributed to these sites. Just as Palden Lhamo guards Lhamo Lhatso, the goddess Ganga safeguards those who honor her waters. Both deities demand respect and devotion, rewarding sincere seekers with blessings and guidance. Yet, the scale and accessibility of the two sites differ. significantly, the Ganges flows through densely populated regions, making it accessible to millions, while Lhamo Lhatso remains secluded and remote, accessible only to dedicated pilgrims. This contrast speaks to the varying ways in which sacred sites integrate into daily life versus serving as destinations for extraordinary journeys. 4. Uluru, Australia. A monument of ancestral wisdom, Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, is a massive sandstone monolith in Australia's Northern Territory, sacred to the Anangu people. According to Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, Uluru is a repository of ancestral knowledge, shaped by spirits who walked the land during the creation era. It is a site of profound spiritual significance, where visitors are encouraged to connect with the land and its timeless wisdom. The connection between Uluru and Lhamo Lhatso lies in their roles as custodians of cultural heritage. Both sites are embedded in rich oral traditions that emphasize harmony with nature and respect for ancestral teachings. At Uluru, rock paintings and carvings tell stories of the past, much like the visions at Lhamo Lhatso offer glimpses of the future. Additionally, both sites challenge outsiders to approach them with humility and reverence. Climbing Uluru has been banned out of respect for its sacredness, echoing the need for purity of intent when visiting Lhamo Lhatso. These restrictions remind us that sacred sites are not tourist attractions, but living embodiments of spiritual principles. Where Uluru differs is in its permanence and physical grandeur. Unlike the ever-changing waters of Lhamo Lhatso, Uluru stands steadfast, symbolizing endurance and stability. Together, these contrasting qualities, fluidity and solidity, illustrate complementary aspects of the human relationship with the divine. Chalice Well, England. The Red Spring of Healing. Nestled in the town of Glastonbury, England, Chalice Well is a sacred spring believed to possess healing properties. Its red-tinted water, rich in iron, has long been associated with the blood of Christ and the Holy Grail. Visitors come to drink from the spring, meditate in its gardens, and seek solace in its tranquil atmosphere. Like Lhamo Lhatso, Chalice Well is a place of reflection and revelation. Both sites invite individuals to pause, look inward, and listen to the whispers of the universe. The act of engaging with the water, whether by drinking it, bathing in it, or simply observing it, becomes a form of communion with something greater than oneself. However, Chalice Well leans more heavily into themes of healing and restoration, whereas Lhamo Lhatso emphasizes prophecy and guidance. This difference reflects the distinct needs of their respective communities. In Glastonbury, the focus is on nurturing the body and spirit, while in Tibet, the emphasis is on navigating existential uncertainties. Despite this divergence, both sites underscore the importance of intentionality. Whether seeking healing or foresight, visitors must approach these sacred waters with sincerity and openness. Only then can they unlock the deeper layers of meaning hidden within. Mount Kailash, Tibet. The Axis Mundi. No discussion of sacred sites would be complete without mentioning Mount Kailash, another iconic landmark in Tibet. Revered by Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Bon practitioners alike, Mount Kailash is considered the Axis Mundi, the center of the universe. Pilgrims circumambulate the mountain in a ritual known as Kora, believing that each step brings them closer to enlightenment. Mount Kailash shares several key characteristics with Lhamo Lhatso. Both are located in remote, high-altitude regions, requiring significant effort to reach. Both are steeped in mythology and serve as focal points for spiritual practices. And both embody the interconnectedness of nature and spirituality, reminding us that the divine resides in the natural world. What distinguishes Mount Kailash is its verticality. While Lhamo Lhatso invites seekers to gaze downward into its waters, Mount Kailash draws the eye upward toward its snow-capped peak. This upward orientation symbolizes aspiration and transcendence, complementing the introspective quality of the lake. Together, these two sites represent a holistic approach to spirituality, one that encompasses both inner exploration and outer elevation. They remind us that the journey toward enlightenment involves descending into the depths of our souls, as well as ascending toward higher planes of consciousness. Crater Lake, USA. A portal to another realm. Located in Oregon, USA, Crater Lake is renowned for its stunning blue waters and deep caldera, formed by the collapse of Mount Mazama thousands of years ago. The lake holds special significance for Native American tribes such as the Klamath, who view it as a portal to the spirit world. Crater Lake shares intriguing parallels with Lhamo Lhatso, particularly in terms of its mystical reputation. Both lakes are said to house supernatural entities. In the case of Crater Lake, a spirit chief named Lao, and both are believed to influence weather patterns and local ecosystems. Additionally, both sites attract pilgrims seeking visions, healing, or spiritual renewal. One notable difference is the degree of secrecy surrounding Lhamo Lhatso. While Crater Lake is open to tourists and recreational activities, access to Lhamo Lhatso is restricted to serious practitioners. This exclusivity underscores the Tibetan Buddhist emphasis on discipline and commitment, contrasting with the more inclusive ethos of many Western sacred sites. Nevertheless, both lakes exemplify the universal tendency to attribute divine qualities to natural wonders. Whether framed within Buddhist cosmology or Native American spirituality, these bodies of water inspire awe and foster connections to the unseen forces that govern existence. When viewed side by side, sacred sites like Lhamo Lhatso, Delphi, Lake Titicaca, the Ganges, Uluru, Chalice Well, Mount Kailash, and Crater Lake reveal remarkable similarities despite their diverse origins. They all serve as conduits for spiritual experiences, inviting individuals to engage with the mysteries of life and death, past and future, self and cosmos. These parallels suggest that the human impulse to sanctify certain places transcends cultural boundaries. Whether through prophecy, purification, or pilgrimage, sacred sites fulfill a fundamental need to anchor ourselves in something eternal amidst the flux of existence. They remind us that no matter where we come from or what beliefs we hold, we are united by our shared yearning for meaning, connection, and transcendence. So, dear watcher, as you reflect on these comparisons, consider this. What makes a place sacred? Is it the location itself, or is it the intentions and actions of those who visit it? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. A dynamic interplay between the innate holiness of the earth and the reverence we bring to it. After all, every sacred site begins as a story told by those who dare to dream of something beyond themselves. Modern implications. Discussions on how ancient practices can inform contemporary issues like mental health and environmentalism in an era marked by rapid technological advancement, environmental degradation, and rising mental health challenges. The ancient practices associated with sacred sites like Lhamo Lhatso offer profound insights that can help address some of the most pressing issues of our time. These timeless traditions, rooted in mindfulness, interconnectedness, and reverence for nature, provide frameworks for healing, sustainability, and personal transformation. By examining how these practices resonate with contemporary concerns, we uncover pathways to a more balanced and compassionate world. Mental health, the healing power of stillness. One of the most striking aspects of Lhamo Lhatso is its ability to foster stillness, a quality increasingly rare in today's hyper-connected, fast-paced society. Modern life often leaves little room for quiet reflection, bombarding us with constant stimuli from screens, notifications, and obligations. This relentless pace contributes to widespread anxiety, depression, and burnout. Yet, the simple act of sitting by the lake, meditating, and observing its tranquil waters offers a powerful antidote to this chaos. The practice of meditation at Lhamo Lhatso aligns closely with modern therapeutic techniques such as mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Both approaches emphasize the importance of being present in the moment, cultivating awareness, and letting go of attachment to outcomes. For instance, when seekers gaze into the lake's reflective surface, they are encouraged to observe their thoughts without judgment, much like mindfulness practitioners do during meditation sessions. This process has tangible benefits for mental health. Studies Studies have shown that regular mindfulness practice can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, improve emotional regulation, and enhance overall well-being. By slowing down and tuning into the rhythms of nature, individuals can reconnect with their inner selves and find solace in the simplicity of existence. Moreover, the symbolic messages revealed in the lake's reflections mirror the introspective work required for psychological healing. Just as the ripples on the water invite interpretation, so too do our emotions and experiences require careful examination. Through this lens, Lhamo Lhatso becomes not just a source of prophecy, but also a guide for self-discovery and emotional resilience. For those struggling with mental health challenges, the lessons of the lake are clear. Embrace stillness, trust the flow of life, and recognize that clarity often emerges from uncertainty. In doing so, we create space for healing and growth. Environmentalism, rediscovering our sacred connection to nature. The environmental crisis facing humanity today, climate change, deforestation, pollution, and biodiversity loss, is fundamentally rooted in a disconnection from nature. Industrialization and urbanization have led many to view the natural world as a resource to be exploited, rather than a sacred entity to be cherished. Yet, the reverence for nature embodied by Lhamo Lhatso offers a powerful counter-narrative, one that emphasizes harmony, stewardship, and reciprocity. In Tibetan Buddhism, sacred sites like Lhamo Lhatso are seen as embodiments of spiritual energy and divine presence. Mountains, rivers, and lakes are not mere backdrops for human activity. They are living beings deserving of respect and protection. This perspective challenges the anthropocentric worldview that dominates contemporary culture, urging us to adopt a more holistic understanding of our place within the ecosystem. Consider the implications of treating the earth as sacred. If we viewed forests as temples, oceans as holy waters, and mountains as abodes of deities, would we continue to extract resources indiscriminately? Would we pollute the air and water that sustain us? The rituals performed at Lhamo Lhatso, offering, prayers, making offerings, and maintaining purity of intent, serve as reminders of the reciprocal relationship between humans and the environment. To honor the lake is to honor ourselves, for we are inseparable from the web of life. This philosophy resonates deeply with modern environmental movements advocating for sustainability and ecological restoration. Indigenous wisdom traditions around the world share similar principles, emphasizing the need to live in balance with nature. By integrating these ancient teachings into contemporary discourse, we can inspire collective action toward preserving the planet for future generations. Furthermore, the transformative experiences reported by visitors to Lhamo Lhatso highlight the potential of nature-based therapies to combat eco-anxiety, the distress caused by witnessing environmental destruction. Spending time in natural settings has been shown to reduce stress, increase feelings of well-being, and foster a sense of connection to something larger than oneself. Whether through pilgrimage to sacred sites or simply spending time outdoors, reconnecting with nature can help heal both individuals and ecosystems. Technology and spirituality, balancing innovation with introspection. As technology continues to reshape every aspect of our lives, it raises important questions about its impact on spirituality and consciousness. On one hand, advancements in artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and biotechnology hold immense promise for improving human welfare. On the other hand, they risk further alienating us from our authentic selves and the natural world. Here, again, the practices associated with Lhamo Lhatso offer valuable guidance. The emphasis on direct experience, gazing into the lake, interpreting its reflections, and trusting one's intuition, stands in stark contrast to the mediated interactions facilitated by digital technologies. While apps and algorithms can provide useful tools for learning and communication, they cannot replace the depth of insight gained through personal engagement with the sacred. This tension between innovation and introspection invites us to consider how technology might be used to support rather than supplant spiritual practices. For example, Virtual reality could simulate immersive experiences of sacred sites like Lhamo Lhatso, allowing people who cannot physically visit to connect with their energy and symbolism. Similarly, mindfulness apps and online meditation platforms can make ancient techniques more accessible to a global audience. However, it is crucial to approach these innovations with discernment. Technology should serve as a complement to, not a substitute for, authentic spiritual practice. Just as the lamas who meditate by the lake must cultivate patience and presence, so too must we resist the temptation to seek instant gratification or superficial solutions. True transformation requires effort, commitment, and a willingness to confront discomfort. By balancing technological progress with spiritual introspection, we can harness the best of both worlds. We can use innovation to amplify our capacity for compassion, creativity, and connection, while remaining grounded in the timeless wisdom of traditions like those surrounding Lhamo Lhatso. Social justice. Compassion as a catalyst for change. At its core, the philosophy underpinning Lhamo Lhatso is one of compassion, a principle that holds immense relevance for addressing social injustices in the modern world. From systemic racism and economic inequality to political oppression and refugee crises, the challenges we face demand responses rooted in empathy and solidarity. The visions received at the lake often involve guidance related to the welfare of others, underscoring the interconnectedness of individual and collective destinies. For instance, the identification of a new Dalai Lama is not about personal gain, but about ensuring the continuity of wisdom and compassion for the benefit of countless beings. This ethos extends beyond religious contexts, offering a blueprint for ethical leadership and activism. Compassion, as practiced in Tibetan Buddhism, goes beyond mere sympathy or charity. It involves recognizing the inherent dignity of all sentient beings and taking action to alleviate suffering wherever it arises. This expansive vision aligns with movements advocating for human rights, environmental justice, and peace-building. By fostering a sense of shared responsibility, we can bridge divides and work collaboratively toward a more equitable society. Additionally, the concept of karma provides a moral framework for addressing structural inequalities. Understanding that actions have consequences encourages accountability and ethical behavior at all levels, from individual choices to institutional policies. When applied to social justice initiatives, this principle reinforces the idea that creating positive change begins with transforming ourselves. Ultimately, the message of Lhamo Lhatso is one of unity and hope. By embracing compassion as a guiding principle, we can transcend divisions and build bridges across cultures, communities, and ideologies. In doing so, we honor the sacredness of life and contribute to a legacy of kindness and resilience. Education and wisdom, nurturing the next generation. The stories and teachings associated with Lhamo Lhatso also carry significant implications for education and the transmission of wisdom to future generations. In a world increasingly driven by standardized testing and rote memorization, there is a growing recognition of the need for holistic approaches that nurture creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. The reflective practices conducted at the lake exemplify experiential learning, a method that prioritizes hands-on engagement and personal discovery over passive consumption of information. When seekers interpret the lake's reflections, they engage in active problem-solving, drawing upon intuition, imagination, and prior knowledge. This process mirrors the kind of deep learning that educators strive to cultivate in students. Moreover, the interdisciplinary nature of the lake's teachings, encompassing philosophy, science, art, and spirituality, offers a model for integrated curricula. By breaking down silos between subjects, we can help learners develop a more comprehensive understanding of the world and their place within it. For example, studying the ecological significance of Lhamo Lhatso alongside its cultural and spiritual dimensions fosters appreciation for the interconnectedness of all fields of knowledge. Finally, the emphasis on mentorship and oral tradition highlights the importance of intergenerational dialogue. Elders passing down stories and insights to younger generations ensure the continuity of cultural heritage and collective memory. In a rapidly changing world, preserving these narratives is essential for maintaining a sense of identity and purpose. By incorporating elements of ancient wisdom into educational systems, we can equip the next generation with the tools they need to navigate complexity, embrace diversity, and pursue meaningful lives. The ancient practices associated with Lhamo Lhatso remind us that the answers to many of today's challenges lie not in reinventing the wheel, but in rediscovering timeless truths, whether addressing mental health, environmentalism, technological ethics, social justice, or education. These traditions offer invaluable lessons that can inform and inspire contemporary efforts. At its heart, the lake represents a call to return to stillness, to nature, to compassion, and to ourselves. It invites us to slow down, look inward, and listen to the whispers of the universe. In doing so, we tap into a reservoir of wisdom that transcends time and culture, empowering us to create a better future for all beings. So, dear watcher, as you reflect on these modern implications, ask yourself, how can I integrate these ancient teachings into my own life? How can I honor the sacredness of existence while navigating the complexities of the modern world? The journey may not always be easy, but the rewards, a deeper sense of purpose, connection, and fulfillment, are worth every step. After all, the true prophecy of Lhamo Lhatso lies not in predicting the future, but in illuminating the path to transformation. And that path begins with each of us, here and now.